Sam walked through the forest. As the first light of morning touched the trees, the air was cool, and the leaves were wet with night mist. Birds moved above him, and small animals ran across his path. This forest was his duty, and his home. He had worked here for many years, and he knew every sound of it. When the wind moved the grass, he knew. When a deer stepped on dry leaves, he knew. When water flowed over hidden stone, he knew. But that morning he heard something he had never heard before, a soft crying sound. It was weak and thin, like the sound of someone who had been alone for too long. It made his body stop at once. His heart beat faster. As he listened again, the sound came from deep inside the forest, far from the walking paths. No family should be there, no child should be there. Sam moved toward the sound slowly. His boots touched the ground with care. The forest became darker as tall trees blocked the sun. The crying came again, this time clearer and more broken. It was not the sound of an animal, it was the sound of fear and pain, a human sound. Sam felt cold inside. He walked faster now, his eyes searching every side. He pushed past thick bushes and stepped over sharp stones. The sound pulled him forward like an unseen hand guiding his steps. After several minutes he reached a narrow cliff. The ground rose sharply, and the trees stood thin and tall. Near the edge of the cliff sat a large dark rock. It was round and smooth, like it had been shaped by water long ago. The crying came from that rock. Sam stopped breathing for a moment. His mind told him that this was not possible. A rock could not cry, a child could not be inside a rock, and yet the sound came from inside it again, weak and shaking. Sam stepped closer and placed his hand on the cold surface. The crying grew louder. The sound was real. The child was close. Sam spoke in a slow, calm voice, asking if anyone could hear him. The crying paused for a second, then returned softer than before. Sam felt a deep fear grow in his chest. The rock had no holes, no open spaces, no cracks wide enough to fit even a hand. Still, the sound came clearly from inside. Sam reached for his radio with shaking fingers and called for backup. His voice was steady, but his words carried the fear he felt. He told the other rangers that he could hear a child crying from inside a rock near the cliff. There was silence on the other side at first, then voices returned full of confusion, but also worry. 2 rangers said they were on their way. Time passed slowly. The crying became weaker and broken with quiet coughing sounds in between. Sam feared the child was losing strength. He searched the area with his eyes, looking for anything that explained this. He walked around the rock, touching every side. The surface was cold and hard like normal stone, but when he reached one side, he noticed something strange, a thin line on the rock, so light it almost looked natural. He brushed dirt from it with his fingers. The line was smooth and straight. It did not look like a crack made by nature. It looked placed there. The child inside coughed again, this time longer and weaker. Sam knew he could not wait. He grabbed a heavy metal rescue bar from his pack and pressed it against the thin line. He pushed with all his strength. Nothing moved. He pushed again, harder, and his arms shook from the effort. Still nothing. The crying turned into weak, gasping sounds. Sam struck the same spot with the bar. The sound that answered back from inside was hollow, not solid. Sam felt his breath stop. The rock was not fully solid. He struck again. The sound inside echoed. The child let out a weak, frightened sound. Sam called out that help was here, and begged the child to stay awake. With one more strong strike, a small piece of stone broke away. It fell to the ground with a heavy sound. Sam stared through the opening that now existed before him. Inside the rock was not stone, it was a small hidden space like a tiny room. The walls were smooth and flat, shaped by human hands, not nature, and inside that space curled a small child covered in dirt and fear. The child blinked against the sudden light and raised a weak hand as if to shield their eyes. Sam felt tears fill his own eyes at what he saw. The child was real, the room was real, the impossible was real. Sam dropped to his knees and began breaking more stone away with careful strikes, piece by piece. The opening grew larger. The child watched with wide, tired eyes, not speaking, only breathing fast. When the hole was wide enough, Sam reached inside and gently pulled the child out. The body was light, far too light for a growing child. The small hands clutched at his uniform, as if afraid to fall. The child did not cry anymore, only stared in silence, as if the strength to cry had already faded. Sam wrapped the child in his jacket and held them close to his chest. He felt the small heart beating fast like a trapped bird. He spoke soft words of comfort again and again, though he did not know if the child could fully hear him. Footsteps rushed through the forest. As the other rangers arrived, their faces showed shock when they saw the child and the broken rock. None of them spoke at first. The scene felt unreal, as if it did not belong in the world they knew. One ranger knelt to check the child while the other stared into the hollow space inside the rock. The walls inside were too smooth, too perfect. No animal could carve such a place, no storm could shape such a room. This space had been built. Sam felt a feeling of deep fear settle into his chest. This was not an accident, this was not nature. Someone had put that child there. As they waited for medical help, the child finally whispered a soft broken word, asking for light. Sam felt his throat tighten as he held the child closer and told them that the light was here now, and they were safe. The child closed their eyes as if trusting those words. The forest stood silent around them. The birds had stopped calling, the wind had stopped moving. The place where the rock once stood now felt heavy with unseen truth. Sam looked at the broken stone, and the hidden room inside it, and felt that this was only the beginning. Something dark had happened here, something that the forest itself seemed to hide. And soon the world would learn what had truly been locked inside that rock. The ride from the forest to the town felt slower than time itself. Sam sat in the back of the rescue vehicle, holding the child close. The small body was wrapped in warm cloth, but still felt cold to the touch. The child did not cry now, only breathed in slow shaky waves, like the fear was still inside, but too tired to rise again. The road twisted through trees and hills, and every turn made Sam tighten his hold just a little more, as if the child might fade if he let go. At the medical center, bright lights flooded the room. People moved fast around the child. Gentle hands checked breathing. Soft voices asked questions. Sam could barely hear. The child opened their eyes once and looked at Sam, then closed them again. That look followed Sam even as he stepped aside and watched from the wall. The other two rangers stood near him. One kept shaking his head in slow disbelief. The other whispered that the rock room was not natural at all. The walls were flat, smooth, shaped with tools. Someone had built it for a reason. That thought felt heavy like a stone in Sam's chest. Hours passed as the sun moved across the sky. Finally a worker came out and said the child was stable, weak, but alive. That word alive felt like a gift Sam did not know he was holding his breath for. Later the child woke again, fully this time, eyes slow to focus, searching the room. A gentle voice asked simple questions. The child gave short answers and sometimes only nodded when asked for a name. The child whispered a soft sound like Lena. That name stayed in the air like a fragile thread. They asked how long Lena had been in the rock room. The child looked confused at first, then fear returned to those small eyes. Lena raised 2 fingers, then 3, then held both hands up, showing many. That answer brought silence to the room. No one said a word, but everyone understood it meant a very long time. Sam waited outside the room. When night came, the hallway lights were dim. The floor echoed with quiet steps. Every sound felt loud in his ears. His mind kept returning to that hidden stone room, to the smooth walls and the thin line that had allowed life to remain trapped inside. Near midnight, a quiet figure approached Sam. It was a local officer who had arrived at the forest late after the rescue. Her face showed deep worry, and more questions than answers. She asked Sam to tell her everything again, every detail, every sound, every feeling near that rock. Sam spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. He told her about the crying, about the hollow sound inside the stone, about the hidden room. The officer listened without interrupting and took careful notes. When Sam finished, she remained quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly that years ago a child had gone missing near that same forest. A search had found nothing, no tracks, no signs, no answers. The case had slowly faded into silence. Sam felt a cold wave pass through him. The timing felt too close to ignore. The next morning Sam returned to the forest with a small team. They moved carefully through the trees toward the broken rock. The forest felt different now, like it was holding its breath. The birds stayed quiet. The wind barely moved. At the cliff, the broken stone still lay open. The hidden room inside waited like a quiet mouth. With care they examined every inch. They found small marks along the walls shaped like tool lines, not natural cuts. They found faint signs of cloth fibers caught in tiny cracks. They found a small metal latch buried behind a loose stone that could seal the opening closed from the outside. Someone had made that room to hide someone. As they searched farther, they discovered faint tracks leading away from the rock toward an old forgotten path long covered by leaves. It led to a stretch of land that once held small homes many years ago. Now only broken wood and stone remained, signs of people long gone. The team felt the truth growing darker with every step. Back at the medical center, Lena slowly grew stronger. Each hour brought a little more color to the small face. When asked gentle questions, Lena spoke in short, broken pieces of memory. A dark room, a small light through stone, a voice that never showed its face, food placed through a small opening at long silent times. Lena remembered learning to count drops of water on the wall to know when time passed. Lena did not know how old she was, only that she remembered sunlight once a long time ago. Sam visited Lena often, always standing by the door first so as not to scare the child, always looked at him with calm eyes now, as if recognizing him as the safe one. Lena held a small stone Sam had placed in their hand earlier, the stone no bigger than a coin. The child did not explain why but would not let go of it. One evening Lena finally asked Sam a question in a soft, unsure voice. She asked if the forest was still there. Sam told the child that the forest was still standing, just as tall and quiet as ever. Lena nodded slowly, as if that meant something important. The search team worked without rest. The broken homes near the old path showed signs of someone living there in secret. Not long ago, food remains, cloth scraps, and worn tools were found hidden beneath loose wood. No one lived openly there now. The place had been abandoned again, but not for long. Late that night, a fresh set of tracks appeared near the search area, like someone had returned to check on the rock room and found it broken. The team followed the tracks through thick brush. They led toward the river, then vanished into mud and water. Whoever it was moved with care and knew the land well. Fear began to spread through the town. People locked doors. Earlier lights stayed on longer at night. Whispers traveled faster than truth. Families held their children closer, and every question led back to the same quiet fear. Someone had hidden a child in a stone room for years, and that someone was still nearby. Sam stood one night outside the medical center looking up at the sky. The stars were cold and distant. The world felt larger and darker than it had only days before. He wondered what kind of person could build a room like that in secret and leave a child inside it. He wondered how many times that person had stood in the forest listening without helping. Inside the room, Lena slept quietly for the first time since being rescued. The small stone still rested in the child's hand, a symbol of where they had been and what they had survived. The night moved slowly outside, as if waiting for something unseen to make its next move. And deep in the forest, beyond the reach of light, a shadow watched from far away, listening to the quiet where a crying voice once lived. The forest no longer felt like a place of peace. The trees still stood tall, and the wind still moved through the leaves, but something unseen now moved with them. Sam felt it each time he stepped onto the trail. Each sound felt like it could hide another sound. Each shadow felt deeper than before. The rescue had changed more than one life. It had changed the forest itself. Lena grew stronger with each passing day. The child now sat up on the hospital bed and ate small meals with slow, careful bites. The eyes no longer stayed wide with fear at every sound, but they still watched every door and corner Sam visited. Each morning before his patrol, the child waited quietly for him and looked toward the door long before he arrived, as if sensing his steps through the hall. Sam did not question it. He only smiled and spoke softly each time. One morning, Lena asked Sam if the stone room was still broken. Sam told the child yes, and that no one would ever be placed there again. Lena nodded slowly and looked down at the small stone in the hand. Then Lena asked if the voice would come back. Sam did not know how to answer that question. He only said that the forest was being watched, and many people were looking now. Lena seemed to accept this and leaned back into sleep. The search team widened their work. The river was searched upstream, and down the old path near the broken homes was walked again and again. At last they found something new near a fallen tree, a line of disturbed leaves that had not been there before. They followed it through thick brush to a narrow slope leading toward the hills. Above the slope stood a lone cabin that had not been marked on any modern map. It was built of dark wood and nearly hidden by the land itself. The team approached with care. Every footstep felt loud in the silence. The cabin showed signs of use. The wood was worn around the door. The ground showed marks of frequent walking. When the door was opened, the room inside was empty, but not abandoned. A small bed lay in the corner. A low table stood near the wall. A shelf held water containers and old tools. Everything was placed with order. Nothing was wild. Nothing showed struggle. And on the wall near the table hung a simple drawing of the forest and a small figure beside a rock. The team felt the truth close in around them. Whoever lived here had watched the stone room. Whoever lived here had returned often. Back in town, the news spread quickly. Fear grew stronger. Parents kept children close. Schools sent many home early. The once quiet nights now carried the sound of locks and whispered worry. Yet no name, no face, no clear answer had appeared, only the shadow of someone who had learned to move unseen. Sam felt the weight of it pressing on him. Each day, more than once, he thought he saw movement at the edge of his trail. More than once, he heard a sound that vanished the moment he stopped to listen. He trusted his senses. They had never failed him before. One late afternoon, as the sun lowered behind the hills, Sam returned to the medical center. Lena sat by the window watching the sky change color. The child turned as he entered and raised the small stone as if showing it had not been lost. Sam sat beside the bed and asked what Lena saw outside. Lena replied that the sky looked free. Sam asked what free meant. The child paused, then said it meant wide and open and not closed by stone. For the first time since the rescue, Lena spoke more words than before. Lena spoke of the dark room, of the sound of water drops, of counting time by breathing. Lena spoke of the voice that never showed its face, a voice that always spoke softly and said the forest would keep secrets forever. The voice said one day the forest would choose what to reveal. Lena did not understand those words then, and still did not now, but the memory carried fear. That night the town lights burned brighter than ever before, yet in the deep forest beyond the hills darkness still ruled. Sam chose to patrol alone along the lower trail that led near the hidden cabin. The team had searched it once, but something within him said to return again. The air was thick with quiet, the kind of quiet that waits. Near the bend of the trail Sam saw movement. A shape slipped behind the trees not far ahead. His hand moved to the radio, but he did not speak yet. He moved slowly, keeping the trees between himself and the movement. The shadow moved again farther up the slope toward the hidden cabin. Sam followed. The path grew steeper, the ground softened from recent rain. His boots sank lightly into the earth. As he climbed, the cabin came into view again. Its dark shape stood still against the hill. The shadow moved toward the backside of it. Sam moved faster now, yet he stayed quiet, trusting the skill he had built over years. Behind the cabin Sam saw a figure kneeling near the ground. The figure moved with calm, steady hands, lifting something from a hidden place by the wall. Sam stepped forward and spoke a clear, strong command, telling the figure to stop. The figure froze for one long breath, then slowly stood and turned. The face that turned toward him was not wild or angry. It was calm and pale, and strangely empty. The eyes held no fear, only surprise, as if the moment had arrived later than expected. The figure spoke in a soft, even voice, saying the forest had already spoken. Sam felt cold spread through his body. He asked who the figure was and what had been done to the child. The figure looked past him toward the dark forest and said, "The forest only guards what it is given. The stone room was not meant for harm, it was meant for hiding." Sam stepped closer and repeated his command with greater force. The figure lowered the head slowly and allowed Sam to secure the hands behind the cabin. Sam saw the object the figure had lifted. It was a small bag filled with cloth and water, the same supplies Lena had described. As Sam guided the figure down the trail, his radio crackled to life, and backup moved in. The long-hidden watcher of the forest was finally brought into the light. People gathered at the edge of town as the figure was escorted through. The calm face never changed, not until the medical center came into view. Inside the room Lena sat quietly holding the small stone. As the figure passed the doorway, Lena looked up. The calm face finally broke. The eyes shifted for the first time. Fear moved across them like a shadow. Lena did not speak. The child only tightened the grip on the stone and turned away. That night the forest felt lighter, as if a breath had finally been released. Yet Sam knew some truths still waited to be uncovered. The calm voice had spoken of hiding, not of how long or why or how many times. And somewhere within the silent trees, the forest still held stories yet to be revealed. The town did not sleep that night. Lights stayed on in many homes, doors stayed locked, but eyes stayed open. People waited for news, waited for truth, waited for the fear to finally leave. Sam stood outside the medical center with crossed arms, feeling the cold night air on his face. His body was tired, but his mind would not rest. The calm face of the figure kept returning to his thoughts. The words about the forest guarding secrets echoed again and again. Inside the quiet room Lena slept for the first time without waking in fear. The small stone still rested in the child's hand. The soft rise and fall of breathing felt like a promise that the hard days were ending. Sam watched from the doorway without waking the child. He felt something warm in his chest that he had not felt in many days, a sense of safety returning. By morning the truth began to surface. The figure was questioned for long hours. Calm words slowly turned into broken silence. Then pieces of a hidden life began to fall into place. The figure had grown up near the forest long ago, alone, forgotten, moving from broken home to broken home, learning early that the world often looked away from quiet people. The forest became the only place that never judged, never spoke, never told secrets. Over time the figure built small hidden spaces in the woods, places to rest, places no one would find. The stone room was the final one, the deepest one, the most hidden of all. And when the lost child wandered into the forest crying and afraid, the figure believed the forest had chosen to give a secret. The child was hidden not to harm, but to keep safe. The figure believed the world outside was too loud, too cruel, too dangerous. But time passed, and the figure never learned when to let go. The forest stayed silent, and the stone room became a cage. Even if the heart behind it believed it was a shield, the forest kept it secret until the day it finally chose to give the child back. When the truth reached the town, a long breath moved through the people. Fear slowly turned into quiet sadness. Children were held tight, not from panic now, but from relief. That night many stood at their windows looking toward the dark line of forest with new eyes, not as an enemy, but as a witness of both loss and return. Sam returned to his patrol at sunrise. The forest looked the same, and yet it did not. The light moved gently through the trees. The birds returned. The wind whispered through leaves again, as it once had before. Fear entered the land. Sam walked toward the broken stone. Once more the hidden room inside had been sealed closed with earth and stone. Returned to nature. Nothing of the room could be seen now. It looked like an ordinary rock once again. Sam placed his hand against it one last time, not in fear now, but in quiet respect, then he turned and walked back toward the trail path that carried him forward. Days passed and Lena grew stronger. The child learned the shape of daylight again, learned the sound of birds and wind, learned the joy of walking freely without stone walls on either side. Sam visited, often bringing small stones from the forest, each one shaped differently, each one a reminder that stone could be open, not only closed. Lena kept them lined carefully by the window. One afternoon Lena asked Sam if the forest was safe. Now Sam answered that the forest had always been the same, it was people who had changed. Lena thought quietly about that, then smiled for the first time without fear. The town slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Children played outside again, doors stayed open longer at dusk, laughter returned to places that had gone silent, fear turned into a memory, not a shadow that followed every step. The calm figure was taken far from the forest, where it would no longer touch the paths of hidden places. The forest kept its last secret, and let the rest go free. On a hill above the trail Sam watched the sun set one evening. The sky glowed in soft gold, and quiet red. The forest below stood wide and open, breathing with the earth. Sam felt the story settle within him, not as a wound, but as a lesson that even stone can hide life, that even silence can carry suffering, and that sometimes the smallest sound, a weak cry in the dark, can move the weight of a mountain. Inside the medical center Lena stood at the window holding the small stone, looking out toward the wide sky. The child no longer feared stone nor dark nor silence, only remembered, and moved forward. The forest remained beyond the hills, quiet once more, but now changed in the hearts of all who lived near it. A place of secrets and of return. And far beneath its roots, beneath its leaves, beneath its stones, the forest kept only one truth now, that no hidden room could ever hold what is meant to live in the light. Here are 10 cinematic, realistic, detailed image prompts based on the story of Sam, Lena, the stone room, and the forest.